An election day again swings blue. What does it tell us, if anything, about 2024, a year from the next big election? This year's election means a big swing in Lansing. And a Michigan congresswoman is censured by her colleagues. Was it fair for the only Palestinian American member of Congress? Today is Sunday, November 12, 2023, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. This morning, we are going to get back to the Flashpoint bread and butter of politics. Last week, we had an election day that seemed to fly in the face of the way so many polls have been breaking. Once again, a lot of Republicans were left asking what happened, while Democrats celebrated victories that they weren't sure were coming. And once again, the abortion issue had a lot to do with it. In Michigan, we may not feel a lot of kinship with Ohio, but Ohio just passed abortion rights on close to the same margin that we saw here. And by the way, the same can be said of Ohio's approval of recreational marijuana. So here we are, almost exactly a year from the big 2024 election. Can we draw any conclusions off of Tuesday? Or, without a presidential race at the top of the ticket, is it not really transferable? We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about a new entry in the race for the U.S. Senate in Michigan. Now, Peter Meijer, as you know, gets no love from the state Republican Party, and that was the kiss of death for candidates the last time around. Can he find a way to push through the far right of his own party? One member of the Michigan congressional delegation had a tough week. Only 25 times in American history has a member of Congress been censured, until last week when Rashida Tlaib became the 26th. Was the only Palestinian American member of Congress simply voicing free speech, or did her comments about Israel go too far? We'll talk about that too, and about the shift in the balance of power in Lansing. That clear Democratic majority didn't last. It's all today on Flashpoint. All right, so much to get caught up on this morning, from Lansing to Capitol Hill. Let's do that with Adolph Mongo, political strategist with Adolph Mongo and Associates, serendipitously named. Zoe Clark is the political director for Michigan Radio. Steve Mitchell is the pollster and strategist for Mitchell Research. And so good to welcome back to the Local 4 studios, he knows them well, Guy Gordon, now the morning voice on WJR Radio. In fact, we haven't had you on the program since you took over for Paul W. in the mornings. And I'm available now, but just a little more bleary-eyed. Yeah. We used to not be able to have you there with your afternoon shift or the other that you had, so it's great to schedule you in. But let's start with what we learned on Tuesday. Once again, Steve Mitchell, a lot of people were surprised at Democratic strength. David Brooks in the New York Times on Friday wrote, "Americans increasingly use polls to vent, not to vote." Is that fair, or is that why we seem to be shocked again and again at blue power?
I was not shocked. Dobbs, the decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, is the gift that keeps on giving for the Democrats. If they can use that issue, as they effectively did in Virginia, saying that Governor Youngkin was going to change the law to a 15-week abortion law, use it as they did in Kentucky against Cameron, the Attorney General there, they will win every time. They outraise you about 3-1, and they have the people on their side. This, to me, was a battle for years and years and years. The war has been won, and it's been won by pro-choice. Yeah, and in fact, guys, it's interesting. I believe so. We have 7 states now that have had statewide referendums on this since Roe, and it's 7-0. Yeah, even in states that maybe you wouldn't expect. Right? Exactly. And Axios had a story today that says that Democrats are going to be ginning up all kinds of ballot proposals in places like Nevada and Arizona that haven't already been through that process, because they want that on the ballot come November of 24. But I would caution Democrats, you can hold back your high-fiving a little bit, because you do that at your own peril if you think it's going to change Joe Biden's age, or if you think it's going to make people forget inflation. That's what this is then ends up being, Adolph. Are these polls there, when we see that we get sideways, because we look at polls that are based on the presidential race, which has Donald Trump in most polls beating Joe Biden, leading Joe Biden, and these other races that we just saw on Tuesday weren't anything about that.
It has nothing to do with the other. One is abortion, and you look at Kansas, which is a deep red state, the women say, you can't control my body, I'm going to vote. But then when it comes a regular election, they voting Republican. Now, Biden's age is a problem. Democrats dropped the ball because Trump has the same issues as Grandpa. I call Joe Biden Grandpa. You know, they got the same. No one wants to see a repeat of the last election, Biden versus Trump. But here we are, right there. And you know, you got some Democrats saying, oh, we need to make him retire. Who do they have to take his spot? No one. So Biden is the key.
There's a lot of talk about a certain governor from Michigan that when...
No way. She's not ready. Maybe in 28.
Gavin Newsom?
Listen, if he's going to do it right. Be a Eugene McCarthy and come out there and say, okay, he has to go. I'm going to run against him in New Hampshire and Vermont and all these other places.
I mean, you're seeing Dean Phillips try to do that. And
Who is he?
I was just literally going to say that. You took the line, right? I mean, I do think, to the point, though, I mean, the one thing that it seems that Americans can agree on, or a majority of Americans can agree on, is they do not want to see these two folks be the final candidate.
And yet we seem to be on a path of inevitability.
It certainly seems that way at this point.
Well, we're all
Devin,
lords.
but that's like Muhammad Ali, 50 years old, fighting Joe Frazier, 52. Nobody wants to see that anymore.
Nobody wants to see it except for the primary voters in the Democratic Party and the primary voters in the Republican Party.
It's like that
They're
scene
the
in
ones that
Barbershop.
want those two candidates to move forward.
Then the trick, then, I suppose, for Democrats is trying to find a way to make the presidential election about abortion, if I'm going off of what you just said.
That's what I would do,
Yeah.
and that's why you're taking a look. There are potential issues in Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona.
Yeah.
They want those on the ballot because what they'll do is they tell their voters, hey, they're going to change and take away your right of abortion. And incidentally, you know who turned the tide in Michigan in that issue? Everybody thinks it's this, that, and the other things. If you look at the exit polling between 2020 and 2022, 18 to 29-year-olds voted almost the same in both elections. 45 to 64-year-olds, almost the same in both elections. 65 plus, almost the same in both elections. It was the 30 to 44-year-old voters who voted +3 in Michigan for Donald Trump, who voted -16 for the Republican candidate in 2022. Why? They get abortions, 30 to 44-year-olds. That was the key demographic, and it's stunning when you think about it. It's not all these other suburban moms, whomever you want to say. It was that 30 to 44-year-old cohort that changed the election in 2022 in Michigan.
Why don't the Republicans say, the leadership in the Republican Party say, okay, we lost. We need to get the abortion question out of the way.
Kind of what Nikki Haley said in the debate.
Yeah.
I thought so too.
They early after Virginia, right? I mean, that was sort of this sort of test case of you put a number of weeks out there, and you see, you know, again, whether you're talking about a ban or not. But one thing I think we have to also note is we're talking about it right now as sort of this top down. Democrats putting this out, Republicans putting this out. I think we have to remember this is a passionate subject among voters. So is it political and is it somewhat Machiavellian to think, let's put this on the ballot? Absolutely. But what we see and what we have seen time again, even in red states, is folks wanting to be able to make their voice heard.
I agree. Yeah. You're right. The rhetoric around it is political. The ramifications of it and the way that people perceive it is very real and visceral
that is
in their
why
lives.
You continue to see. And at a certain point, I do think if Republicans, you know, to understand, they're going to have to understand that, you know, again, whether it's 15 weeks or not, a clear message continues to be told.
Guy, one of the other interesting upshots of Tuesday, we had two House members running for mayoral seats. I talked to Governor Whitmer about it this past summer. I know she was dismayed that they would throw this majority into vulnerability that way, and sure enough, both of them won their races, and now we're back to a kind of a stasis situation in Lansing. What do you?
I know Rain Man over here with his historical references is going to remember back to '93 when they had a power sharing agreement.
Right.
Because you had Paul Hilligans and Curtis Hertel who actually could break bread together, and they did it. That isn't going to happen. Instead, I think every voter should be absolutely offended that they're going to close up shop instead of trying to find consensus, trying to embrace the prospect of compromise and get some things done that are still being left on the table as they exit Lansing today.
A lot left on the table still. They're done now for the year, Steve. And there's a lot of things that weren't done. They've talked about paid leave, the auto insurance big loophole mess that they left a lot of accident victims in. None of these things got done. And now, how do they get done?
Well, they're not going to get. And not only aren't they going to get done this year, because sine die means you're ending the session, and they're going to do that on Tuesday. It's normally done December 31st, December 28th. They're doing it in November in order to have the presidential primary in Michigan in February. And so now with these two mayors
a really
out,
Byzantine set of rules, by the way, that lead to that math. But go ahead.
But anyway, now as a result of that, with two mayors gone out, nothing will happen until May, until they have the two special elections to replace the mayors of Westland and Wayne.
And evidently, when it comes to transparency, party in control doesn't matter anyway. Nobody wants to take it up with any. We saw 22 Democratic amendments struck and gavelled down.
It is the obsession of this program is trying to get transparency things, and everybody gives lip service to it. Zoe,
then I mean, the show is going to always continue. Then you will always have some.
It's job security.
Job security. Then.
Why is the governor upset? Because these people wanted to run for mayor. Listen, they're going to have a special election, and it looks like they're going to get the majority back. I know it's a pain in the butt right now, but it is what it is. You can't tell somebody, "Oh, don't run," because we got to have the majority. Listen, they want to serve their city. They from that city, and they won. So accept it. You can't get upset about it.
Going to take a quick break. We come back. We will talk about a Michigan member of the congressional delegation censured by Congress. That doesn't happen very often. And is the Michigan GOP about to run out of money? This is Flashpoint on Local 4.
I can't believe I have to say this, but Palestinian people are not disposable. We are human beings, just like anyone else. My city, my grandmother, like all Palestinians, just wants to live her life with freedom and human dignity we all deserve. Speaking up to save lives, Mr. Chair, no matter faith, no matter ethnicity, should not be controversial in this chamber.
That was Michigan Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, the only Palestinian-American member of Congress, making her comments on the House floor shortly before being censured by her colleagues. That doesn't happen very often, only about 24 times in the history of Congress. Let's talk about that now, gang. Adolph, interesting dilemma here, I think, for a number of people. And there were, the vote was 234 to 188, which means that there were 22 Democrats who voted to censure her as well. Was she exercising her right to free speech, or was she engaging in hate speech?
She can dish it out, but she can't take it. You can say, I'm all for free speech. And I understand she got folks over in the Gaza Strip.
Yes.
I don't like her. When she was the congresswoman out of the 13th district, the first thing she did, that was her agenda. Now, the 13th district is the second poorest district in America, and her agenda, one priority was the Gaza Strip. And I was one of those people that criticized her. I said, you know what, that can be one of your pet peeves. Of what's happening over there, but the majority of the people that live in this district could care less whether Israel and Hamas and whoever else are fighting.
But to my question, though, I mean, we can argue about her priorities as a member of Congress, but was the censuring the correct thing to do?
to the victors goes the spoils. They had the votes, and she pissed off a lot of Democrats, and she saying slogans that people are offended by it. You know, if you say some stuff, if you're walking around throwing dirt on folks, people are going to come back at you. So no, I don't feel sorry for her. She went out there. You can say what you want to say, but you got to deal with it.
Zoe, what are your thoughts?
I think there's two things going on, right? One is the fact that we are in an incredibly intense, traumatic period of time in world events, and we are watching in real time that happen.
Yep.
The other time, we are seeing a dysfunctional House of Representatives to many respects, and the use,
perhaps
as you know,
right now headed for a shutdown.
Headed towards a shutdown, exactly. And 3 weeks, including during these horrific attacks, happening without a Speaker of the House and unable then to get funding. And so what you're seeing also then is a House, and you know this is the 26th member of the House to be censured, but I think what you're seeing is these moments, such as talk of impeachment of Joe Biden and censuring, these sort of institutional parts that are being used politically in a way. And so these two things are happening, and that's hard because they're nuanced, that there is something awful happening and someone is speaking out, but also the politicization, I think, and the use of using the House floor on both sides of the aisle to get messages across in sometimes political ways.
Hypersensitivity going on right now. Let me let you both weigh in.
You know, one of the big questions for me, and it's probably for you, Adolph, is, I mean, it should be now from the river to 8 Mile, we should be looking for a new candidate for the 13th district.
There's no question.
So, I mean, what we talked to Tim Walberg, and he had basically abstained from the first censure vote.
Right.
He came in and voted for it this second time around, and he said, look, it was very simple. That statement was so offensive and so insulting to so many people, and she had deleted it from her Twitter stream before because she was concerned about it. So it wasn't like she was unaware, or that she just thought it was outrageous.
That's like calling me the N-word and saying, okay, you know what, I didn't mean it that way. But she said it.
The statement from the river to the sea is generally thought to mean to many the annihilation of Israel from the River Jordan to the Mediterranean. Steve, she said that what she was really referring to was not that. She was referring to trying to create independence and dignity for people who haven't had it.
Rashida Tlaib knew exactly what that means. And what I found interesting is not the censure vote so much. Dana Nessel, in a tweet, said, I have defended you when you have been indefensible. I cannot defend this. Take that down. Yeah. Then you had Alyssa Slotkin saying the same thing, again from Michigan. Everyone, I'm a Jew. We know what that means. They want to annihilate us. And when they use that, a lot of these college kids who are saying it don't know what it means. But most people who have been around understand they want the Jewish race extinct. And so she should have been censured. There's no greater supporter of the First Amendment than I, but that crosses the line.
If she would have just talked about her grandmama and her relatives being over there, I have no problem with that, because that's who she is. But when she starts saying stuff like that, some of my Jewish friends who I grew up with, they voted for her, they supported her, and I say she was a fraud from day one when she got elected. And now they see the real Rashida Tlaib.
Zoe, quickly.
I was just going to say to that point, you saw Hillary Skolton come out, Dana Nessel, Alyssa Slotkin, but neither of those two congresswomen ended up voting in favor of the censure, which I think again goes back to this point of being folks being angry or outspoken, but then not wanting to actually take
concerned about the First Amendment, which is legitimate.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's push into 2024 here with an interesting local note that came out last week. Peter Meyer, who has had a really hard time with his own state Republican Party, announcing that he's going to get into this Senate race to replace Debbie Stabenow. Guy, the Republican Party... If
he bought that building, maybe he'd be back in the good graces, right?
Maybe, because right now it does look like the state GOP is insolvent.
The Sekia Weiser building, which was basically gifted and is now in trust, they can't sell it, but it sounds like they're peddling it because they need the money so badly. And there's been some great reporting on that they're about to lose a line of credit. Yeah. It's an unholy mess, but it was totally predictable because they chased away the deep pocket contributors. couple dozen of them that have been keeping that party
Christina
afloat.
Caramo last week kind of referred to, I think, she basically called it a criminal enterprise, what she felt that the party was before she and her colleagues took it over. Steve, does Peter Meijer have a path forward in this climate?
I think he has a difficult path. I did some polling in July. I tested Mike Rogers, who's thinking of getting in the race against Slotkin, and I tested Meijer. And is now in. And has gained a lot of support.
Yeah.
And I tested Meijer. Because Meijer voted for impeachment, not only will a lot of Republican voters not vote for him in the primary, they won't vote for him in the general election. Mm-hmm. They'd rather vote for a Democrat instead. They would
vote for Slotkin over him then?
That's what the polling shows.
Interesting.
I mean, what you have is a guy that's father's a billionaire who can run. He cast a vote. I'm confident he wishes he could take over again, but he did it, and it's going to be problematic for him.
You really
all
think
the way.
I don't think so. I haven't heard any reticence.
It was a character vote for him, and I think he owns it.
They have to own it once they say it, but if Fred Upton or Peter Meijer could go back to that day, they would cast a different vote.
Upton would?
But I don't think so. Yeah. But Devin.
Yes, sir.
Peter Meijer should do what Don Regal did 50 years ago. Switch parties.
Switch parties.
Right. That's what Regal did. He didn't like Nixon, etc. He was a good Republican, and he became a Democrat.
I don't think Peter Meijer feels like he has much in common with Democrats other than his dislike of Donald Trump.
You know what? Listen, Democrats accept we're a party of everybody, of inclusion. Republicans are the one that don't want somebody different.
He went to Columbia. That's all you have is Democrats.
That's right.
Well, I mean, it was enough that you saw on X, a tweet on X come out from apparently an intern of the Michigan Republican Party,
right.
Basically denouncing Meijer's candidacy, which was then
he's dead on arrival.
Deleted very quickly. But
and blamed on an intern. And
always
like, how many interns do you have with access to this account?
There was those questions were being asked, and from what building are they working?
Well, they're next to him.
Next to my office in Lansing, block from the
one
office
room rather than a building.
Absolutely.
Well, he's dead on arrival. He's he is, and because you got Hollywood in the race, and you got
James Craig.
Yes, you got Mike Rogers. Listen, I'm just telling you. You know, Republicans are so dysfunctional. I don't know. They are a gift that keep on giving.
We got to take a break. Back with more. This is Flashpoint on Local 4. Okay, we need more time to debate the Peter Meijer and Fred Upton votes, so we're all going to go out for breakfast and discuss that over waffles. Feel free to join us. Thanks, gang, so much for the conversation. Thank you for being here as well. Meet the Press coming up next. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time right back here for Flashpoint.